Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm delighted today to be joined by three current students from the University of Manchester's part-time blended online programme, MA Educational Leadership in Practice, Michael, Louis and Stephanie. They're going to be sharing their experiences about studying the course with us, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves shortly. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Hazel and I'm currently the course advisor for MA Educational Leadership in Practice, and I'm based here in Manchester. I'm here to support anyone considering studying the course by making sure that you have all the information that you need to make an informed decision about returning to study and to help guide you through the application process. Our course advisor team is here to support you until you hopefully begin your studies with us. If you're based internationally, then I also work closely with teams at our centres in the Middle East, Hong Kong, China and Singapore, and I can always put you in contact with my colleagues based more locally to you if we think that that's needed. Today's webinar is a live event, meaning that as an audience you can submit your questions using the Q&A and chat functions, and we welcome you to get involved in the webinar today. So if you'd like to use the chat and say hi to other audience members, then please do so, and it will also be great to hear from you. Don't forget to let us know where you're joining us from if you are saying hi in the chat. We're also recording today's webinar for you to watch and or listen back at your convenience. I'm now going to hand over to the panel and ask them to introduce themselves. So please, can you let us know your name, where you're joining us from, and what made you decide to study educational leadership in practice? Stephanie, we'll start with you.
Hello everyone, my name's Steph. I am from the Isle of Man in the UK, but I'm working out in Qatar at a British international school called Doha College. I've been here for 6 years, and before that I was working internationally at Kellett School in Hong Kong. I'm director of music here. I've been director of music in Hong Kong and also the UK, and like deputy head of arts faculty and just basically everything within the arts. So I guess what brought me to the Educational Leadership MA was a desire to broaden out my experience and really kind of embed some wider, more holistic leadership ideologies, I guess, to my portfolio. And so yeah, that's why I ended up taking the course.
Thanks, Steph. And Michael, on to you.
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to this webinar, everybody. My name is Mike Wilkinson. I'm head of school at a private school in Istanbul, Turkey. I've worked in a number of areas around the world, but most recently for the last 25 years, I've been based here in Istanbul in Turkey. My educational background is as both an English teacher and as a French teacher, but most latterly I've worked in a range of kind of middle management positions. And then 4 years ago, I took up the headship of my current school, and that really coincided with the COVID pandemic. So it was a tough few years as leader of a school, dealing with all of those sort of issues at that time. And so I kind of came out of that, and I felt as though I wanted to gain more academic understanding and a better understanding of leadership and how it works, and try and kind of apply that to the experience that I'd already gained. So that was really my choice of why to do something academic at that stage in my career.
Thank you very much. And Louis, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, wherever you are. My name is Louis Fang. I am a Chinese Canadian. I was actually born here in China, and then I moved to Canada when I was 10. I am currently based in Shanghai. I am a full-time university guidance counselor, but before that, I was actually teaching in Canada. I was teaching ESL, and I was also a geography teacher. I have been working here in China for about 5 years now. And my journey to MA Educational Leadership is really a thought that I had thinking of stepping into managerial level or position in my current school and see the kind of skills that I need. And I didn't really have a lot of experiences as a leader in a big school. So, and that is why that got me into this program. Yeah, so that is about it from me.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much for your introductions, everyone. So we'll get started with the panel discussion in just a moment. But before we start, I just want to give a little bit of background information about the MA Educational Leadership in Practice course that we run at the University of Manchester. So this is a blended online course, which is designed to help you discover the kind of leader that you want to be. The course has been specifically designed with working professionals in mind, meaning that you can continue to work while studying without the need to take a career break. Throughout the programme, you study 6 taught units followed by a research element, and this all takes place online through a virtual learning environment, meaning the course can be completed in 24 months. All of that learning that takes place online is then enhanced by conferences that take place twice a year at each of our international centres. Depending on where you live, you'll normally learn with the centre that's closest to you geographically, whether that's with us here in Manchester or at Dubai, Shanghai, Hong Kong or Singapore. And the conferences are going to be the main focus of our discussion today. But if you do have any questions for our panel about studying the course more broadly, about their general student experience, then please let us know. We'll try to answer as many of those as we can. But now we're going to go on to kind of the first question that I've got for our panel, which is, can you tell us a little bit more about your experience attending conferences? Michael, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. I've attended 2 conferences. This is my first year on the course, so I attended one in March and one in September. I attended them both at Manchester, at the Manchester campus or the Manchester conferences. I may consider moving, you know, geographically, Dubai may be a bit closer to my current location, but for me, going back to Manchester, I have family connections there. So for me, that was the first choice. And it was great to be on campus in a university environment, feeling like a student again after, you know, 30, 40 years or whatever. And I think the Manchester campus is something that is a great student experience. And we got to meet a lot of the academic staff and the professors from the Institute of Education at Manchester who actually delivered those courses. So for me, both of the conferences that I've attended have been a great experience. They've been attended mainly by people who were working in the UK, so geographically sort of slightly different to where I am, but meeting people from a variety of backgrounds has been a great experience as well.
Thank you. Who wants to go next?
I can go next. I am currently in my 2nd year and I've attended 3 conferences, all in different locations actually. My very first conference was actually last March, and that was when we were in lockdown. Yeah, nobody got to travel within China, so we attended the first conference online. Which was very different than the second conference I attended. I attended the Shanghai Center one and met some of my classmates finally. And just recently, last month, I attended the Singapore conference where I met all the students from Singapore, some from Hong Kong, and our professors from the UK. I would say that having the conference and the physical learning in classroom is definitely a very practical experience. You get to discuss any questions or the learning materials with your former colleagues and also with your classmates who are actually working in similar industries, sharing experiences. And also professors have been very helpful, and they have been sharing a lot of experiences of their own leadership. And I think that physical experience of experience sharing is definitely something that I have found very valuable for this program.
Thank you. And Steph, over to you.
I mean, I'm in a similar situation that obviously with the pandemic, my first conference was online. But it's been good, I suppose, looking at the arch of how a conference runs and how a blended master's program runs. And I know we'll come to that a bit later, but I'm also in the second year. And funnily enough, when I was doing the conference online at home, I found it really exhausting. And I think it was just constantly staring at my screen all the time. And you feel isolated in your own space, don't you? And it was when I went to Dubai for the first time and we were all there together, and it was just that collegiality. And I think one of the key things that you read about on the master's program for educational leadership is this notion of collegiality. And when you first start the course, you look at distributed leadership models and varying different types of leadership. And one common thread is this idea of personal experience, and that leadership is essentially all about relationships. And so, you know, that's underpinned directly when you go to a conference in person with the people who are delivering the course, where you might talk about things that you might not necessarily bother writing in an email or in comments in a chat. So yeah, I just think it's valuable because it's tangible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and thanks for sharing that as well. Obviously, we hope now that the situation with COVID settled and that all of our conferences can continue to run in person. But if for any reason they couldn't, there was the online. We were able to run them online so that we didn't miss out on these conferences at the time. So thinking about now the actual conference itself, what does a typical day look like when you're attending one of the conferences?
I'll go for that. You arrive and you usually get spoiled rotten with lovely little nibbles and coffee and juice and things like that, which is really enjoyable, not going to lie. And then usually it's split into different seminars, and it's also connected to whatever project or topic you're looking at the time. But I think a key differential is there's always a component of looking forward of what's going to be coming next and making sure that you've got an oversight of that and that you feel comfortable within that. So yeah, it's varied, but the day is split up into sessions that are delivered by the lecturers that are there in the country at the time, but also they bring in the online blended modality in by bringing in lecturers from Manchester as well, which is nice.
And Louis, do you want to add anything at all?
Yeah, definitely. I just feel like the conference is when the very first minute when you walked into the conference, you feel like everybody's so welcoming and you feel like, oh my God, I'm finally meeting everybody in person. And I still remember when we first met Dr. Paul Armstrong, everybody's like, oh my God, you're this tall. Because when you were online, you would have never really noticed like how tall your professor is. And it was just, you know, it was a very interesting experience, I have to say. And it's also like, you know, this kind of old feeling of going back to school, where just like what Stephanie has shared, you know, you're grouped into we were grouped into 3 subgroups, and you basically, like, from morning you would study like the planned lessons, and then there were discussions for subgroups to discuss, and then you share, you know, whatever you have discussed later on. So it was very engaging, very interactive, and also very, very interesting, I have to say, especially for my Singapore conference. We had students from around the world. It was amazing. Yeah.
Would you say it was different at all, the experience attending in person at Shanghai compared to Singapore?
I think it was Because for me in Shanghai, it was still half lockdown last September. I got to travel, but still some of my other classmates, they were in different parts of China and different city had different restrictions. So half of the class were actually in the center and half was still online. So I think the Singapore experience was definitely the best for me. As Stephanie had also mentioned, actually, the very first one when we did online was quite exhausting. We were actually like the whole class were like, shall we do some yoga stretch in between the sessions to just chill and relax? Yeah, but I think for the next cohort, like whoever's watching, you will be very lucky because you just got to travel and meet with the classmates and got to discuss and share all the amazing experiences with each other.
That's brilliant. And Michael, is there anything you'd like to add?
Not really. I mean, I just echo what Stephanie and Louis have just said. Really, is that I think the face-to-face experience makes a huge difference. And the tangibility of meeting people and having, face-to-face opportunities with lecturers, with academics, is really sort of enriching and valuable, and so on and so forth. Like I said earlier, for me, I just kind of reveled in the fact that I felt like I was going back to school or going back to college after all these years, and to be able to kind of have that feeling and the collegiality that comes along with that was really very beneficial and made it very rewarding.
That's fantastic. So yes, thinking about what was beneficial and what you've gained from the conferences, what would you say was kind of the most beneficial and most useful thing that you've gained from them? Yeah,
I was actually just going to say this for your previous question, but and again, I think one of our friends mentioned this earlier, but you kind of preview quite a lot of the content that comes up in later units as well. So timing wise, it's sort of there's a lot of stuff that kind of came up in terms of the academic content that was covered in the lectures, and the conferences and the seminars that actually came up in some of the units later on. So that was really useful, that these weren't kind of strange topics that you were just reading from a page, that we'd had an opportunity to kind of discuss and dig into at the conferences. So I think that preview aspect is really important.
Yep. Louis, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I also just wanted to echo to what Michael's just brought up about the preview part. I feel, before starting this program, I kind of felt a bit anxious in a way of not really knowing what to expect. And like, I'm the kind of person who's like quite organized. Like, I wanted to know and to be able to control what I am going to do. I want to know that. But like, I feel before the program, I was really like feeling uncertain. But starting from the conference, I feel like each conference is there to give you an outline of what to expect for this whole term. So for example, for the third conference I just attended, professors mentioned our plans for the next 5 to 6 months, the units that we will have to study for, the kind of methodologies, the kind of research methods that we will be doing, and in terms of what we will be looking for. So I feel like those instructions being told ahead of time had really helped us to plan things ahead of time, and also to like manage our time in a pretty sensible manner.
Yeah. And Steph, is there anything you'd like to kind of add? What about things you found useful or benefited from the conferences?
Your network increases with like-minded individuals. It's lovely to be around reflective practitioners who want to improve, who want to engage with extended empirical work based around both their practice and what else is out there. So I think that's been the nicest thing. And it's wonderful having everybody's WhatsApp and say, have you done the assignment yet? You know, which bit is stuck on, this, that and the other, and then you all come to put a face to the name at the conference, and it's a really nice element. So
yeah, I can understand that. I think sometimes when everything's online, we see each other so infrequently, and I know, Louis, you said about this, it's that thing where you meet someone in person for the first time after seeing them online, and you say, oh, you're so much taller than I expected from seeing your image, or, you know, yeah. And there is an element of that, and it's nice that you're not meeting someone for the very, very first time at a conference, but you also are in some respects too. So thinking about the way you've been learning at the conferences, but also about the course a bit more broadly, is there any aspects where you've been able to apply your learning to your current work? Steph, do you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I used to make decisions before, but now, it was always kind of based on my experience or based on a feeling. But now that I've looked, you know, at a deeper level at sort of a myriad different approaches to, you know, how you run both leadership and management within your day-to-day practice, it sort of imbues you with confidence, and it's very, very interesting when you sit in meetings and you hear other people speak and you think, I don't know if I agree with that anymore because of X or Y, or it just broadens out your scope. And I think that's so important because, you know, I guess we can talk about leadership being operational, and we can talk about leadership being strategic, and we can, you know, we can give chapter and verse on what the theory is. But there's somewhere in the process of learning that makes you realize that actually it's sociology, it's people, it's relationships, and I guess I hadn't really thought about it in that way before. And as a result of that, you know, I felt less of a separation between leadership and teachers, because essentially we're all those things all of the time. And when you go through that learning journey and it gives you that confidence, I think you come out the other side of it just feeling very at peace potentially with who you are as a practitioner, and the confidence that you feel inside to be able to deliver the absolute best job that you can do. So from that perspective, for me, it's been a colossal impact, because I'm just more at peace with everything that I'm doing, because I understand it more, you know.
That's great. Thanks, Steph. Louis, how about you?
I definitely resonate to what Steph's just mentioned. You know, I would say, like, first of all, the course started with introducing the 3 main types of leadership and where this educational leadership comes from. You know, I think just like Dr. Helen Gunter had mentioned, you know, people kind of just have been taking this for granted. You know, it's called educational leadership, but really, where does that leadership, management, or administration come from? To understand everything from the ontological background to where we are right now is definitely something that has struck me. So that is taken from, you know, the business perspective to education and what education really is. And I think the very second point really relates to what Steph's just mentioned about the sociological perspective of the theories and how we have applied the theories into our practical work experience nowadays after studying this MA program, is that as a leader, even, you know, even now I am still just a uni counselor. I recall, you know, some of the of the decisions I had made when I was a manager before. You feel like, oh my God, I could have done a better job now understanding where there are where they come from. You know, we have mentioned this a lot, called structure and agency, and also Bourdieu's field, and where everybody has been brought up to be who they are, to really look at people from, you know, where they're coming from and their environment and what has molded to who they have become nowadays. Is really going to help the team and the group, and overall macroly, like in the macro level as a school, to lead in a good way. I sometimes think, you know, we also just think about leadership as, you know, top down, but like in this program, we also talked about bottom up, and that also resonates to like a really recent research from Harvard Business, where it says managing up. And I feel like in school, we are all learning from each other. We're not really just learning from you know, our maybe SLT members, but also from our parents, from our students, from people from our community. So I feel the second point of sociological background, of understanding where the knowledge is actually coming from, with the history of educational leadership management, had really helped me to understand where I am standing right now, working in a bilingual school in China. Where does that policy come from? And to apply everything into my real life. And that is very, very valuable.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Louis. And Michael, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the answer is that you learn pretty quickly from very early on, and it changes your outlook. And I think our two colleagues have kind of touched on most of the key points. I would just maybe add a couple of things. Really, is that related to understanding where these theories come from that Louise just touched upon, and then Steph talking about, you know, developing it as a practitioner. I think I would summarize it as being very empowering. And I think one of the key things you mentioned, Professor Helen Gunter, one of the things that she always encourages people to become is policy literate. And I think that's one of the key things, is that you understand where these movements in education are coming from, where a lot of policies are generated from. And, you know, and that really is sort of something that you can take, you can kind of compare it with your own practice, use it to inform your practice. And I think it's a much more sort of robust and credible understanding of leadership compared to, say, what I'm going to use the term like sort of airport bookshelf type management and leadership stuff, which, you know, the 10 best ways to be a top 10 leader and all that kind of stuff. It really does kind of give you a much more critical position in understanding the management speak, and I think that is extremely powerful and empowering.
I'd just come in on that, actually, Michael. I really resonate with that. I think online, and especially on LinkedIn, it's like death by meme, or death by the latest educational consultant has said X, Y, Z. And, you know, let's not forget that that is a reciprocal thing for them, in that it's a business. So the actual empirical study of leadership, where nobody's really particularly coming at it with an agenda, is a real breath of fresh air.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I totally agree. Yeah.
No, thanks very much for all of your insight there as well. So we've had a question submitted from our audience. So I'd just like to kind of focus on this for a moment before we go back to some of our other topics that we were going to discuss. And based on your experience and kind of meeting your peers on the course as well, would we say that this MA is more suitable for professionals who are already working in teaching or leadership roles, or with some teaching or leadership experience, or could somebody without that teaching or leadership experience benefit from the course? Yep, Go for it, Michael.
I would, it was a solid both would be my answer when I read this question, because I was coming from the kind of the former background. I had quite a lot of sort of practical experience of leadership, and it's really helped me to sort of tie that experience to the theory and the research and the background to this. But I think, you know, I've met a lot of people on the courses who've not necessarily been in those positions, had that experience, or who are perhaps sort of aiming career-wise for maybe moving up to middle leadership or senior leadership, or indeed a whole variety of backgrounds. But I think, you know, the intellectual and academic background and rigor that it brings is suitable for anybody really with an interest in education and managing in an educational environment.
Yeah, was there anything else that anyone wanted to add at all? No. So I think perhaps the other thing just to consider is that with some of the units there is a reflective element for the course. So if you have some particular teaching experience there that you can reflect upon, then that obviously does make that element of the course easier in some respects, but it doesn't necessarily mean you can't succeed in the course. It's just that different people will come from it from different backgrounds. So it's going to be applying your experiences to make it relevant as well, is what I would say to that. So going back to thinking about the course and thinking about how you've been learning, is there anything that you would say has surprised you, either about attending the conferences or about studying online during your time on the course? Do you want to go first?
I can go in on that. I'm somebody who likes to just get on with it, and I thought on the face of it that when we did our collaborative projects that it was really going to irritate me, because I just want to get on with it, as I said a moment ago. And the absolute opposite happened. And it was bizarre because we were all in different countries. We were put into a collaborative group, and I expected I wasn't going to enjoy that process, and I absolutely loved it. And we created some digital platforms to work so that we could all you know, contribute to the group and come up with thoughts and ideas and comment on each other's work. And then all the kind of questions that buzz around your own mind about, am I approaching this in the correct way, were picked up and answered, you know, in a live capacity. And, you know, of course, that's very similar to a classroom environment in a way, isn't it? And I was just really surprised by that, because, you know, I've been nearly 20 years in education now, and I thought it's quite stuck in my ways. So maybe it's developed me in terms of my thinking on collaboration, for example. So.
Which unit was that part of?
It's a collaborative practice, educational leadership with a social practice. So yeah, I ended up loving it, and I didn't think I was going to. So that's a good thing.
That's fantastic. That's always great to hear. Louis, how about you?
Yeah, I just wanted to resonate to what Steph's just mentioned about this unit. I'm actually in the same unit right now, and we actually just had a meeting the day before. And yes, it's the same with us. There are 5 of us, and we are all in different countries. And it was just like, I was like, oh my God, we're never going to have a meeting together, or, you know, like get on with things. But like, it went really well. We have our group email, and we also have a WhatsApp group. We also have like our Teams group, and everybody's really on it, and everybody's really been challenging other people's inquiries and also helping with each other. And that is something that I've really enjoyed. And also for this question, like what has surprised me, I have to be honest with this, was that like when I started with this program, I didn't really expect to be liking it that much. I just kind of thought that I'm just going to get a degree in MA, and then after when I'm done with my first unit, I was like, oh my God, I really enjoyed studying all these. and like the philosophical and sociological background, how it's now tied into leadership is just amazing. I've never really thought about educational leadership in that perspective. I would say, like, you would probably just spontaneously thought that it's education and you learn how to be a good leader to lead teachers. No, it's not like that. It's, you know, it takes you into different perspectives to really understand people first, and it really challenges an educator's understanding to check to see why things are the way it is. Is there anything wrong with it? Like, to refer to Professor Helen Gunter's saying, to really think as a fish out of the water. And that is just amazing. You know, we have been applying like this theory in the past 5 units now, and it's just amazing. I've really enjoyed it, I have to say. Yeah, that's from me.
That's brilliant, thank you. And Michael, how about you?
Just kind of 2 quick points really from me on this. I think if you talk about the surprising or the revelatory sort of thing that kind of that I wasn't expecting was, as colleagues have mentioned, the sort of the sociological underpinnings of what we're doing, which kind of speaks a little bit to that sort of, it's not the airport literature and the memes on LinkedIn kind of stuff, and that as I mentioned earlier has been really enriching. And, you know, mentioned Bourdieu and, you know, other sort of philosophical underpinnings that, you know, Habermas and those kind of angles and dimensions to it have been were quite surprising to me. It's not really what I was expecting, to be honest with you. The other thing is just a sort of about the materials and the access to the materials and the way that the materials are curated in on the online learning platform, the VLE, sorry,
yeah,
the VLE, sorry, should know that. You know, the access to the materials is really smooth. There's lots of links. There's a nice balance of literature that's kind of shared with you, and articles and stuff, which kind of makes the reading manageable, I think, and the library access that we get as a student at Manchester University also kind of gives you endless possibilities as well. So I think the way the course is curated and set up online was a pleasant surprise for me. I found it quite easy to navigate and get my head around and access the materials.
That's brilliant, thank you. Yeah, and just to kind of say to anyone who's listening who's perhaps a little bit nervous or worried about that as well, is there is a study advisor, study support team as well. So if you ever are struggling to navigate that, there is somebody there who's specifically there and able to help you throughout your studies, and they are there right from when you first register to start your studies right through until you graduate as well. So there's never a wrong time to get in touch with someone. They're not only there for the first month or something like that, they're there for the full duration of your course if there's something that you need support with as well. So going back to thinking about the conferences now, we've just got a couple more questions. So if anyone in the audience does have anything else that they want to ask, then please do let us know. We'll try and fit it in. But thinking back about the conferences, was there anything you were perhaps a bit worried about, a bit nervous about with attending the conferences at all?
I think the silence says it already. Not really from my point of view. I was very much looking forward to it. Compared to our 2 colleagues here who maybe had the online experience first, I was lucky to just kind of be able to go back to face-to-face learning. But you know, it was great meeting people. I think something that Steph mentioned was the reflective practitioner aspect as well. I think, you know, meeting with sort of like-minded people and having those opportunities to think and discuss and share was very enjoyable to me, to be honest with you.
No, that's brilliant. I mean, it's always reassuring to hear there was nothing anyone was worried about. We'll take silence as a good thing there. So
I would say even if you're nervous from the second when you walk into the conference room, I think it's just gonna be gone because everybody will be so welcoming. And yeah, as Steph just mentioned, there will be refreshments and, you know, stuff for you to nibble, and yeah, you'll be spoiled.
that's always nice to hear, isn't it? You're going to be well looked after. So I can see we have another question submitted, referring to talking about the reflective elements of the course. So what I think is probably best is if we follow up this second question just outside of the webinar today. So I'll send you an email afterwards, and perhaps we can arrange a chat if there's anything you're particularly kind of worried about. Then we can follow up in more detail and talk about the reflective elements of the course and how that relates to your personal case, because it might well be that there's it can be quite different for each individual. So I will follow up an email afterwards with that one. So moving on to what's now our final question. I'd like to just come to each of you in turn and ask you what advice you would give to someone who's either about to attend their first conference of the course, or who's thinking about studying the course and about to submit an application, and what advice would you give to them?
Go for it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. 100%. If you're working, I think, you know, one of the questions that, you know, about that sort of, you mentioned it, is it has worked for me personally. I can't speak to anybody else, but integrating it into my sort of work schedule has been easier perhaps than expected. I mean, there are sort of time demands expected, but it was a lot easier. And I think yeah, 100% go for it, because you're getting into, it's an academic pursuit, and you're feeding yourself professionally and intellectually, and you will benefit from that. I think you'll grow from it. You'll develop a way of reading through sort of and approaching academic articles written about education, which, as we've mentioned before, will empower you. And I don't think you'll look back, to be honest with you. I think if you go for it, you'll be fine.
I would say that, you know, it's different than doing a middle leaders course or a senior leaders course. Very different, actually, because it's more meaningful. And I've done myriad different CPD courses during my time, but the masters, whilst it's been difficult at times, because I'm director of music and there's 2,500 students in this school. I also run an instrumental team and a massive events program throughout the year, and I'm sure yourselves, you'll all have your own busy schedules, and sometimes it is difficult to fit it in, but it's about prioritizing you and what's right for you as a practitioner and as a person in your own development, and actually saying, I need to give this to myself so that I've actually got something of value that I can hinge my learning on and hinge my opinions on, and really understand, who I am and where I am in my career. And I think that is the difference than doing a 6-month course. It's a totally different approach. And, Manchester University is a Russell Group university, so they are expecting academic rigor, but it's not out of the realms of anybody's capability, and they're incredibly inclusive as a group. Whenever I send an email for some support to the Manchester group, immediately, they're on to me with suggestions and ideas. And some of the tutors have just been absolutely phenomenal. So yes, it is busy. Yes, it's challenging, but it's worth it.
That's amazing. Thanks, Steph. And Louis, how about you?
Yeah, I would definitely say the same thing. I was just like, shall I say just go for it? Yeah, definitely go for it. I would say, I think It is definitely something that, you know, maybe in 10 years time when you look back, you're going to be like, this is definitely something you know, valuable that I have done. And at least I'm thinking about it this way. And for every unit that I am taking on right now, I just feel like, oh my God, I am learning so much. And I sometimes recall what we have learned in Unit 1 and Unit 2, and I'm like, I literally wrote an email to one of the professors saying that this is such a well-weaved program. Like, who thought about this in the first place? Because I also have some colleagues who attended other like similar programs, but I realized like I have to be honest, their workload is not as much as what we have here. But I just feel like they're not really learning as much just by the way how they express how they tell me about the program. But every time when I share stuff, they're like, why are you so enthusiastic? Why are you so happy? I'm like, because I've really enjoyed studying my program. Like, I sometimes say I look forward to be working on my paper. People go like, are you nuts? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I just can't wait to work on this. I love all the research that I've done, and I just wanted to, you know, put everything together onto my paper. And I've really enjoyed it. Guys, just go for it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And actually, it's wonderful to hear how much you're all enjoying the course and everything that you're getting from it as well, I have to say. So that really brings us to a close for today's session. I just want to take a moment to say thank you to Michael, to Steph, to Louis for taking time out of your days to join us. I know you're all very busy with your day jobs and with your study as well. For everyone watching or listening back as well, I really hope that our discussion today has been useful for you. And if you do want any more information about the course, then you can visit www.manchester.ac.uk/ELIP or ELIP for a general course overview to get the most up-to-date information about the programme. Or you can also send me an email at studyonline@manchester.ac.uk and we'd be more than happy to help. But like I say, once again, thank you so much to our panel today. It's been absolutely fantastic to hear your experiences, and it's great to hear what a great experience that you're having and you've had so far in the programme. And I really hope that continues, and good luck with the rest of your studies as well.